Hello and welcome to another Mr. Spreadsheet video. Have you ever wanted to create your profit and loss and balance sheet from a simple listing of your general ledger account balances? Are you a little uncertain as to what goes where and how to present your financial statements? Well, this short video will show you how to achieve this in 3 simple steps. Firstly, we will extract or enter in our complete general ledger balances. This is called a trial balance. We will then separate the trial balance into a profit and loss section and a balance sheet section, and from there we can design our final accounts of both a profit and loss statement and a balance sheet. As usual, I will show you how to obtain a copy of the final template later on in this video. And if you need any help with the Excel functions or techniques that I have used, then please do leave a comment below. I hope you enjoy watching. To design and build our financial statements or final accounts, we need to extract our accounting data directly from our accounting records. You'll need your general account names and their corresponding cumulative values. Now, in most instances, you can download these in a simple 2-column CSV file format directly from your accounting software program. This CSV file is in fact called a trial balance, where the sum of all the values of all of the accounts should equal 0. So let's quickly do an auto sum by highlighting the entire value range and checking that the sum of all the credits and the sum of all the debits come back to 0. That's great. Our values are okay. So that we can see all of the transactions, let's quickly separate this list into 2 halves. The first half will be the business income and the business expenditure section, which we will call the profit and loss. And the second half will be the business assets and the business liabilities section, which we'll call the balance sheet. Please prepare your own CSV file or copy my values. We can now prepare our profit and loss statement from this data. But first, let's add some column headers and introduce a new column so that we can enter in an analysis code for each general ledger account. Insert a new line at the top of the worksheet, and in cell B2, enter in the column title of General Ledger Account. Insert a new column after column B, and put in the title Code in the new cell of C2. In cell D2, enter the title Value. We now need a code or a separate identifier for each of our general ledger accounts, so as to segregate them into one of the 3 profit and loss sections of either sales, cost of sales, or overheads. Sales will become code X, cost of sales will become code COS, and the remaining general ledger accounts being called letter A through to letter J. Please enter the various codes as shown on screen. You will note that I have temporarily hidden the balance sheet section, as we will return to complete this later on in the video. For now, we will concentrate on the design and formulation of our profit and loss statement. We will design our profit and loss statement on a new worksheet. So click on the Add Sheet icon on the Work tabs bar. Rename this worksheet to read Profit and Loss. Now, copy in the standard format design for a profit and loss statement in cells C3 through to C28. We have a section for sales, a section for cost of sales, and a large section for our general overheads. We have also added the gross profit and net profit lines. We now need to calculate the various profit and loss values by extracting data from our trial balance. One way in which we can do this would be to use Excel's SUMIF command. The Sumif command will aggregate values based on a criteria found within a range and then add up all the matching values in a sum range. Our criteria for the sales line is the code X, which we used in our trial balance. So enter an X in cell D6 on the profit and loss worksheet. The criteria range is the code range of C3 through to C28 on the trial balance. So highlight this range and from the Formulas ribbon select the Define Name tool, and in the dialog box that opens enter the name Profit Code with no spaces and click OK. The sum value range is the range D3 through to D28. So once again, using the Define Name tool, give this range the name Profit Value, again with no spaces, and click OK. OK, let's return to the Profit and Loss worksheet and enter the following formula in cell F7. Equals Sumif, open brackets, the word Profit Code, a comma, point to cell D6, then a comma, and then the word Profit Value, and close the brackets. Hopefully the formula will return the value of 25947.01, which, if we return to the trial balance worksheet, is the aggregate value of all instances where the code is X. Our values and formulas are correct. We can now repeat this SUMIF command to aggregate all of the code values that we have created on the trial balance. So in cell D8, enter the code COS, and in cell F8, enter the formula equals SUMIF, open brackets, profit code, comma. Now point to cell D8, then a comma, then the word profit value, and close the brackets. The value of 6594.66 is returned, which, if we check on the trial balance, is the sum of all instances where COS is the code. Now enter the correct codes for each of our overhead lines as shown, and then using the same SUMIF command, calculate the values of each overhead component. Hopefully, you'll return the same values as shown. The only part of the SUMIF command that changes is the reference cell in column D. That's great. We can now tidy up our profit and loss. Select cell F10 and enter the formula plus F6 minus F8. This returns the value of minus 32541.67, which is clearly wrong. Correct this by slightly changing the formula in cell F6, by changing the equal sign at the start of the formula to a minus sign. The gross profit of 19352.35 is now correct. Now select cell F24 and enter in the formula equals sum, open brackets, E4 through to E22 and close the brackets. This should return the value of 17359.03. Now select cell F26 and our net profit is simply plus F10 minus F24. Our profit is 1993.32. We can check this by returning to our trial balance and use the AutoSum tool to add up all the values in the range D3 through to D28. We can see that the two values correspond. So finally, let's return to the profit and loss and apply some formatting. Highlight the range E6 through to F26 and right-click your mouse. Select Format Cells, choose the Numbers tab and set this to 2 decimal places with the 1000 comma separator checked. Highlight the range D6 through to D22 and change the font color to white such that the values are hidden. Now select cell F10 and from the Borders tool, select the top border. Select cell E22 and apply a bottom border. And select cell F26 and apply the top and double bottom border. Finally, make bold cells F6, F10 and F26. And that completes our work. From our trial balance, hide columns B through to E, such that only the balance sheet part of our trial balance is now showing. We need to separate this into the various balance sheet sections of fixed assets, which will make code A, current assets becomes code B, current liabilities will be code C, long-term liabilities will become code D, and finally shareholders' equity becomes code E. We also need to divide these into subsections to fully prepare our balance sheet. So insert a column between columns G and column H and apply the row headers of General Ledger Account, Code and Value. Now copy in the codes that I've entered, noting that the first letter of the code represents the balance sheet section and the second number the balance sheet subsection. Okay, now that we have allocated codes to the balance sheet General Ledger Accounts, we can start to build our balance sheet. Insert a new worksheet and navigate to cell C5 and type in Fixed Assets. In cell C6 it's Plant and Machinery, and in cell C7 it's Office Equipment. In cell F6 enter our balance sheet code of A1, and in F7 it's A2. We now need to calculate the value for plant and machinery. So using the code of A1 located in cell F6, we can use the Sumif command to extract the aggregate value of code A1 from the balance sheet trial balance. The Sumif command calls upon two ranges to compute its value. These two ranges are the criteria range of H3 through to H25 and the sum range of I3 through to I25. So let's give these ranges a name. With H3 to H25 highlighted, select the Define Name tool from the Formulas ribbon, and in the dialog box that opens, enter Balance Code with no spaces and then click OK. With I3 to I25 highlighted, select once again the Define Name tool from the Formulas ribbon, and in the dialog box that opens, enter Balance Value with no spaces and click OK. We can now return to the Balance Sheet tab and enter in our formula in cell J6. The formula is equals Sumif, open brackets, the word balance code followed by a comma, point to cell F6, then another comma, and then the word balance value and close the brackets. This should return the value of 5046.31, which should correspond to the aggregate value of all instances where A1 is the code on the trial balance worksheet. Select cell J6 and now copy and drag down the contents to cell J7. The Sumif command changes to pick up the criteria of A2 in cell F7. This returns the value of 752.04, which we can check against the values held in the trial balance. That's great. It all seems to be working just fine. Select cell J8 and add up the contents of the two fixed asset values. The formula is simply plus J6 plus J7. Now select the Borders tool and apply the top border option to cell J8 and make this bold. Now we can complete the current assets section by using the same Sumif command. Navigate to cell C9 and enter the heading Current Assets. In cell C10, it's inventory and work in progress. In cell C11, it's account receivables. C12 becomes other debtors, and C13 is bank and cash. Enter the codes of B1, B2, B3 and B4 in cells F10 through to F13. Navigate to cell G10 and enter in the SUMIF command as follows: equals SUMIF, open brackets, balance code, a comma, point to cell F10, comma, and then balance value, and now close the brackets. With G10 still active, copy and drag down the formula to cell G13. The values for each line should populate correctly. In cell I14, enter in the command equals sum, open brackets, point to the range G10 through to G13 and close the brackets to add up the current asset values. Then enter a bottom border in cell G13 and make cell I14 bold. Repeat the entire process for our current liabilities by selecting cell C15 and entering the header of current liabilities. C16 becomes accounts payable, C17 is taxation creditors, and C18 reads other creditors. F16 through to F18 contain the criteria values of C1, C2 and C3. Our SUMIF command in cell G16 becomes equals SUMIF, open brackets, balance code, comma, point to cell F16, comma, balance value, and close the brackets. This formula can, once again, be copied down through to cell G18. Hopefully, the values are retrieved successfully. In cell I19, enter the formula equals sum, open brackets, and then point to the range G16 through to G18 and close the brackets and make bold. Navigate to cell G18 and from the Borders tool on the Home ribbon, select Bottom Border. Our net current assets in cell J20 is our current assets less our current liabilities. So the formula in J20 is simply plus I14 plus I19. Make this value bold and enter the line description of net current assets in cell C20. The total value of all of our assets is termed net assets, and this is simply our fixed assets total in cell J8 less the net current assets value that we've just created in cell J20. So enter the formula of plus J8 plus J20 in cell J22. Make this value bold and apply a top border from the Borders tool. We can once again use the SUMIF command to calculate our long-term liabilities. So in cell C23, type in long-term liabilities, and in cell F23, enter in the criteria code of D1. Now select cell J23 and enter in the formula equals SUMIF, open brackets, balance code, comma, point to cell F23, comma, balance value, and close the brackets. This should retrieve the value of minus 6613.55. Now, if we deduct this from the net assets total above, we will get our net assets less our long-term liabilities. So the formula in cell J24 becomes plus J22 plus J23. Make this value bold and apply the top and double bottom border option from the Borders tool. The final component of our balance sheet is the shareholders' equity section. The shareholders' equity total must be exactly the same as the value of our net assets less our long-term liabilities. That is, the value of 21445.34. Select cell C26 and enter in the header Shareholders' Equity. In C27 it's share capital, in C28 it's reserves, and in C29 it's current year profit and loss. Enter the criteria codes of E1 into cell F27 and E2 into cell F28. Select cell J27 and enter in the formula equals Sumif, open brackets, balance code, comma, point to cell F27, comma, balance value, and close the brackets. And now copy this formula down one row to J28. We will get the two values of minus 700 and minus 18752.02. Add these two together and we will get minus 19452.02. Our current year profit and loss will be the difference between the 19452.02 and the net assets less long-term liabilities value in cell J24. So in cell J29 enter in the formula minus J24 minus J27 minus J28. This should return the value of minus 1993.32. Now select cell J30 and, using the Auto Sum tool, add up the contents of the range J27 through to J29. Hopefully this returns the value of minus 21445.34. You will note that this agrees with the value of our net assets less long-term liabilities in cell J24. Our balance sheet balances. We can further validate this current year profit and loss figure by referring to the trial balance. If we auto-sum the value column, it too returns the value of 1993.32. Returning to the balance sheet tab, let's make cell J30 bold and apply a top and double bottom border. Enter a balance sheet heading in bold as shown in cell C3. And finally, let's format and tidy up our work. Select cells C5, C19, C15, C20, C22, C24 and C26 and make these bold. And that's it. We now have created a balance sheet statement directly from our general ledger account balances. I do hope that you enjoyed watching this video on how to create your final accounts from a trial balance, and that there was lots of content that you found both useful and informative. Now, if you would like us to send you a copy of the completed template, then please give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Alternatively, please visit one of our channels on Facebook, Instagram or Twitter. If you are a small business and you want to keep your accounting records in Excel, then why not watch our How to Create an Accounting Spreadsheet video? Alternatively, why not take a look at our How to Keep Inventory in Excel video? This popular tutorial shows you how to maintain and record your inventory.